Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first 2 novels, one the start of a series, one a standalone. And on my channel, I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing, and that's the characters. And the heart of the characters is their psychology. So that's the angle I take with pretty much everything I talk about on my channel. So today, I've actually been trying to figure out what topic I wanted to talk about for a little bit. And I want to touch a wee bit on trauma in writing. So those of you who've been on my channel for a while know I've kind of touched on this topic before, and I don't necessarily have 5 main points I want to bring up or anything like that. I just want to address a couple of the things that I've noticed as a trend in writing and whether it's a good trend or a bad trend. If you guys want me to do an in-depth thing on trauma, I can. That would probably be a lengthy video or maybe a series of videos because it is a very in-depth topic. But if you guys want me to do that, definitely let me know. I'd be happy to do that. But for today, I just want to bring up a couple of the main trends that I've noticed in writing regarding trauma of characters and whether I think they are accurate or not, and if they're not, what can we do to fix it? So first and foremost, the major one is it seems that in writing, it's one of two things. Either none of your characters develop a response to trauma or they all do. I don't think I need to say that this is incorrect. People respond to trauma in various different ways and for various different reasons. A whole bunch of things go into it. Your personality, your resources, your support network, all kinds of things affect how you are going to respond to trauma. It's also important what type of trauma it is, how long it's been going on, is it repeating, is it a one-time thing, lots of different factors. So basically, if you have numerous characters that go through trauma in your story, the chances that all of them are going to react the same way or are going to react in the same manner is very low. There should be a variety. As a general rule, the characters that have more resources and have, as a general rule, are more open to change are usually going to fare better when it comes to trauma, because these are traits of resilience. And I do have a video on resilience that you guys are welcome to look at if you want. I'll link it below. But basically, these characters are more likely to kind of bounce back from trauma more readily than someone who does not have these either personality traits or these resources in play to help them. Secondly, in the same kind of vein, not everybody that goes through trauma is going to develop PTSD. I believe it's only about 15% develop PTSD, and again, that varies. Lots of things go into it, same as if someone has any reaction to trauma. There's a lot of different things that affect it. But I think the thing with PTSD is that it is a very varied diagnosis. There's lots of different ways it manifests. There is a delayed onset. There is the onset that comes right away. So you can have your characters react in a variety of different ways if you want them to have PTSD, or if you think it's important to your story for them to have PTSD. The thing to remember with PTSD, though, is, like I've said in my other videos, really do your research. If you have the opportunity to, talk to someone that has had PTSD or has worked with people that has had PTSD. Because I really think the movies and the books and things like that, they really sell the flashbacks, which is a symptom of PTSD, but not everybody who has PTSD has flashbacks. And I think it's just, I would like to see more of the variety of symptoms than I am currently seeing in fiction. Like I said, usually there's a really strong emphasis on flashbacks. There's a really strong emphasis on like suicidal thinking, that kind of thing. And while that can definitely be a part of PTSD, it's not the whole thing. So there's that. The other factor, what I've seen a lot in movies in reaction to trauma, is people utilizing substances, alcohol, drugs, that kind of thing. This is based in truth because people who have gone through trauma are more likely to utilize these substances, but it doesn't mean that they will. It just means that they are more likely to. Most people that I have counseled with PTSD have had that in their past, but I have also had people I've counseled with PTSD that did not. So all things to take into account. The other thing to consider is that addiction is not just alcohol, substances, drugs. It can also be gambling. It can be sex. It can be pornography, things like that. And we call those shopping. We call those process addiction. And what that means is essentially, instead of you introducing a substance into your body that's giving you the high, it's actually the process, the ritual itself, that your brain is creating its own high. And so those pop up with people that have trauma as well. Like I said, though, same thing as with substance use and alcohol. It can be a factor, but it is not 100% going to be a factor. And I really think that's important because I do see that there is this trend in fiction that anyone who's gone through trauma is going to become a drunk, or is, that kind of thing. And not necessarily true. Let's see. And the main one I wanted to bring up with this video is when books and stories and movies show somebody recovering from trauma. I do like that they're starting to show that more, because it is a process. It used to be that, if you had someone who'd gone through trauma and they were having reactions to it, that, if we would do a time skip and then, oh, they're all better now. I wish it worked that way. It does not. Recovering from trauma is honestly kind of a lifelong thing. There is definitely, if you were to do a time skip of like 2 to 3 years and the person was in, therapy treatment for their trauma during that time, yeah, they're going to be substantially better generally. But that doesn't mean they're going to be entirely who they were before. They're never going to be who they were before, because the trauma has essentially created a new person. And so it's more about moving forward and building on who they are than necessarily trying to get back who they were. And I think that is something that is, when I've counseled people, that's kind of the hard thing for them, is realizing that they're never going to be the same as they were before, just because of the nature of trauma and how it works. But the thing I see in fiction the most that I think really probably does need to be fixed is usually when people are going through treatment or therapy, you see them gradually getting better, and then they recover. And while that can happen, I'm not saying it can't. While that can happen, it's much more likely your recovery is going to look more like this. You're going to take steps forward, something's going to happen, you're going to slide back a little bit. You're going to keep working, step forward, slide back a little bit. Because there are things like triggers, and I'm talking about the clinical definition of the word, which is something that brings up someone's trauma. And that can set you back. There are events in life that can set your therapy back. So it's more of a zigzag line than it is a straight line, because people make progress and then something happens and they're set back a little bit. Then they kind of push forward again. They make more progress. Sometimes it's a long train of a lot of different, a long time of progress, and then they slide back again, and that's okay. That's the nature of recovering from trauma, is you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have slide backs, and that's normal. And I actually would like to see that more emphasized in fiction, that having a slide back is normal, because I think there is this image that once you start, treatment or therapy, that you're just going to continually get better and you're never going to have a setback. And that discourages people when they do have one, and it's not a very accurate depiction. So the thing to remember when you're recovering from trauma is you're essentially having to correct, your brain has created new cognitive survival mechanisms, essentially, and you have to essentially reprogram your brain to let it know you don't have to be in survival mode anymore. And that takes a long time. So I would love to see more stories where you see someone recovering from trauma, making progress, but they do have a setback, they do have a slide back, and it takes them a bit to get forward again, but they keep moving, they keep going on. And I think that is more encouraging than just showing nothing but success in therapy. So that's just my opinion. So those are just some minor thoughts I had on trauma in writing and fiction. I hope you guys found it interesting. If you guys have questions or are interested in knowing more about it, let me know. I will be glad to either answer them for you or put it in a future video. If you don't want to miss when I upload, make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss whenever a new video goes up. I upload twice a week, once at the beginning of the week, once at the end of the week. And as always, if you guys have just suggestions, comments, questions, leave them below. I'll get to them as soon as I can. And I hope you guys stay safe, and until next time, have a good one.